You and Leader Scalise talked about the importance of Merrick Garland complying with a congressional subpoena. I'm curious, since Chairman Jordan and 4 other colleagues declined to do that under the January 6th committee, if you worry that undermines the argument at all?
Oh, I'm so glad you brought up the January 6th committee. We'll be talking a lot more about that in the coming weeks. There's been a lot of investigation about that committee. I don't think it was properly constituted. I don't think it was properly administered, and now we know that apparently some of the evidence was hidden and some maybe even destroyed. So you'll hear much more about that in the days ahead. You talk about apples to oranges. There couldn't be a more clear contrast between that and what we're talking about here. This is the Judiciary Committee. This is the Weaponization Committee. These are properly constituted and operating committees under Chairman Jordan's leadership. Have done extraordinary work, methodically, constitutionally, appropriately, and now we come to this impasse with the Attorney General himself who refuses to comply. Look, this is an Article 1 issue. We've got to get it covered well, and I think we will, and I think that's why this contempt will pass on the floor.
Since House Republicans meant what they said when Representative Neal said it.
Everything that we do in the House of Representatives should be in the best interest of getting Donald Trump reelected. This guy right here.
Moses Mike Johnson took the reins on reality and just claimed that their vote to hold Attorney General Garland in contempt for not handing over audio tapes of Biden's interview with special counsel Robert Hur has nothing to do with their pledge to represent Trump instead of their constituents. So the January 6th committee wasn't legit, and his partisan actions are, just because Moses said so.
Well, it should be prosecuted by the Department of Justice.
Which it won't. Almost certainly won't happen.
Well, if Steve Bannon has been prosecuted and is going to prison soon, if Peter Navarro was prosecuted, serving time in prison, is Merrick Garland above the law? I mean, I thought the whole argument is that no one is above the law. And now that we've held him in contempt of Congress, he should be prosecuted by the Department of Justice, and he deserves the exact same fate as Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon. Okay, hold Merrick Garland, take him in, prosecute him, and put him in prison. Then the American people will start considering maybe there's not a two-tier justice system.
Do you think Garland should be in prison?
We just held him in contempt of Congress. They're putting Steve Bannon in prison. Peter Navarro is in prison. Merrick Garland evidently deserves to go to prison.
March couldn't help but to admit that her motivations were to highlight that her MAGA cohorts, Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon, have been arrested for violating their subpoenas. So in order to trick supporters, they needed to hold Garland in contempt as well, while Bannon cosplays a martyr.
In my 20s, I served my country on a Navy destroyer. In my 70s, I'll serve my country in a federal prison. It doesn't make any difference. It won't change my life one whit. I don't have a big social agenda. I'm dedicated to this work of saving my country. And if I have to be a political prisoner, I'll be a political prisoner. July 1st, hey, I served my country on a Navy ship. I'll serve my country as a political prisoner in a federal prison for a misdemeanor. I don't bat one eye. Whatever it takes to win this revolution, we got to do.
That's a lot of big talk from a guy that just begged for the courts to keep his ass out of prison while he hopes the Supreme Court will take up his little case and make him look like a fighter. But to his brainwashed audience, he's talking like he welcomes the time behind bars. He's like, go ahead, throw me into solitary confinement. I've been in the Navy. I'm willing to sacrifice again. Well, then stop wasting time and asking for a way out. Walk in there and just rock that orange jumpsuit like the martyr that you claim to be. You know, these guys are shamelessly shouting about arresting Merrick Garland when a few of their own Republican colleagues keep exposing their obvious politically driven scheme to equate this to the testimony that they're running from giving.
You've got two of the most powerful Republican committee chairmen, Jim Jordan and James Comer. They're pushing with a resolution to hold Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, in contempt of Congress. Now, obviously, you know them both well. You served in those committees. Do you agree with Jordan and Comer on this move to hold Garland in contempt?
No, I think it's a political stunt, Aaron. This is the transcript from President Biden's testimony in front of Special Counsel Hur has been turned over. They have the material in front of them. What they're looking for is President Biden's voice so that it can be used by the Trump campaign in an election cycle. That's just unnecessary. Attorney General Garland, give him a huge amount of credit here. He took a lot of grief from the left for not redacting the report and withholding certain information that he released so that he would be fully transparent and the American people would have all the information. And now he's getting attacked by the right for not releasing an audio tape that can be used in a campaign. He is an Attorney General Garland's in a no-win situation. Right. They released the transcript. They have the information. They're just looking for something for political purposes.
To help Trump's campaign and to provide a thin, transparent layer to cover for Jim Jordan, Peter Navarro, and Steve Bannon.
Can we also just talk about subpoenas for 1 second? Because 2 of your last speakers are 750 plus days in defiance of a subpoena. So get real when Mr. Jordan and Mr. Biggs come to this floor and want to talk and get all righteous about subpoenas.
And it's rich beyond measure, like a billionaire rich, to be asked to hold the Attorney General in contempt by people who themselves received subpoenas to testify before the January 6th committee, who never rendered a single document nor a single minute of testimony to the January 6th committee.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. First of all, I never said I wouldn't testify in front of the January 6th committee. I just want to know what the parameters that testimony were going to be. So I never did say no to that.
Weird that Representative Jordan said he never said no to testifying to the January 6th committee, because he was quoted at the time rejecting the idea that he or others should be subpoenaed to testify about their interactions with Trump on that day. I think this commission is ridiculous. And why would they subpoena me? I didn't do anything wrong. I talked to the president. I talk to the president all the time. I just think you know where I'm at on this commission. This is all about going after President Trump. That seems obvious. Sounds like he said no to testifying in front of the January 6th committee. And from the way he didn't answer the question about his conversations with Trump on the day that their foot soldiers attacked the country, there's a clear reason that he didn't want to.
This committee is obviously going to go down a number of different roads about who knew what when, who was talking to coordinators of the protest. Did you talk to the former president that day?
I've talked to the former president umpteen times, thousands. I mean, not thousands
on
times,
January
but countless times. I talked to the president. I never talk about what we talk about because I just don't think that's appropriate. Just like I don't talk about what happens in Republican conferences. So
Sure.
I've talked to the president numerous times. I continue to talk to the president since he's left office.
on January 6th, Congressman.
Yes, I mean, I've talked to the president. I've talked to the president so many. I can't remember all the days I've talked to him, but I've certainly talked to the president.
Yeah, and on that day can you share any of the insight of what he was thinking about that day?
Brett, the people we need to come testify are the people who can testify to the fundamental questions. Why didn't the United States Capitol, the People's House, have an appropriate security posture on that day? And what have we done? Those are the people we need to hear from.
That deflection tactic, along with that nervous stuttering, sounds like there's some more information that Jim Jordan doesn't want anyone to know about regarding his conversation with Trump on the day that their warriors attacked. It's easier to roll the dice and ignore subpoenas than to expose the loser former president's conversations while he watched the violence play out. And the cover for their elusive actions ever since is to obviously use the narrow majority that they have in Congress to sloppily paint a picture of Biden corruption with absolutely no evidence to back it up.
We're here today because of the Republican Party's unrelenting effort to get Donald Trump back into office. No matter the facts, no matter the law, for over a year, the Judiciary Committee, Republican colleagues, have desperately sought evidence for wrongdoing by President Biden. And what have they found? Nothing. Nothing. It is my job, it is all of our jobs to represent the constituents. I thought that's what we were all here for. I implore my Republican colleagues to stop putting the interests of one man above the interests of Americans. The truth will out, and history will not look kindly on what you have done here.
Everything that we do in the House of Representatives should be in the best interest of getting Donald Trump reelected. This guy right here.